Have you ever seen an aircraft that looks like it's ejecting fire from its engines? By the end of this video, you will understand this phenomenon and how afterburners work and what shock diamonds are. Let's now discuss afterburners. Afterburners inject additional after fuel into the exhaust stream to burn any remaining oxygen. This process increases thrust, making it common in supersonic aircraft. Notice the bright flames in the exhaust at the rear of this engine. Afterburners are effective at providing a boost of thrust, but are also quite impressive to see. In the diagram, you can see how fuel is injected into the afterburner section after the main combustion has occurred. This additional fuel burns in the presence of excess oxygen, creating reburnt gases and significantly increasing the temperature and velocity of the exhaust gases. This is why afterburners provide additional thrust, especially crucial during combat maneuvers or when supersonic speeds are immediately required. However, this method of thrust augmentation comes with a significant drawback: worse fuel efficiency. The fuel consumption of an afterburner is much higher than that of a basic jet engine because the extra fuel is not burned as efficiently. The reaction is not as effective, meaning that to have an increase in thrust so that all oxygen particles react with fuel, it means we have to let some fuel exit the engine without reacting. We are essentially bombarding the mixture that already was burned with extra fuel to see if we can burn it even more. Afterburners are located after the turbine of the engine, within or before the nozzle. So in summary, afterburners are a powerful tool for increasing thrust, but at the cost of fuel efficiency, making them ideal for applications like supersonic flight, but not for sustained economical flight operations. Let's now talk about shock diamonds, also known as Mach diamonds. These are visible phenomena in supersonic exhaust plumes. The bright spots in the exhaust are called shock diamonds. They occur due to the standing wave pattern formed in the jet's exhaust. This standing wave pattern results from abrupt density and pressure changes in the supersonic flow. When the exhaust gases exit the nozzle at supersonic speeds, they undergo a series of shock waves and expansion fans. These shocks cause the gas to compress and expand periodically, forming a pattern of alternating bright and dark regions. Shock diamonds indicate the exhaust plume is under or over expanded relative to the ambient atmospheric pressure. This sequence of shock waves and expansion fans is what creates the visible shock diamonds. The interaction between these shocks and expansions leads to this distinctive diamond-shaped pattern. The shock diamonds appear as a series of diamond-shaped patterns, formed due to the alternating compressions and expansions within the exhaust plume. In the case that the exhaust leaves at lower pressure than the ambient air, compression happens. Compression is the simple result of oblique shock waves that occurs when the supersonic flow is compressed by the ambient air, increasing pressure and density. Essentially, you can think of the plume exiting the engine as crashing into the atmosphere, which is at a higher pressure. So as the exhaust exits the nozzle and is pushed inwards, forced by the ambient air, it forms oblique shock waves. As a consequence of these oblique shock waves, the air is compressed into this diamond. At this stage, the flow collapses in itself, and the high pressure at that point, at the diamond, pushes the exhaust air outside again. This is called an expansion fan. After passing through the oblique shock waves, and the flow then expands and decreases again in pressure. So essentially, we are at low pressure, the ambient air is forcing the flow into higher pressure, and then it collapses because it's at such high pressure within the diamond, then it pushes outside again, it expands again. So the expansion causes the exhaust gases to spread out again. However, because the exhaust gases are expanding and the pressure is dropping, the ambient air again creates compression, pushing the exhaust air towards the inside again. Then the cycle repeats, where compression leads to the creation of a new high pressure zone, which then expands the exhaust gas outside again, creating this periodic repeating effect that we call shock diamonds. This process continues downstream as long as there is sufficient energy in the exhaust jet. Shock diamonds are visible because pressure, but also density and temperature change during the compression and expansion cycles. The difference in temperature is what causes the diamonds to be visible. Here are a couple of examples of aircraft showing these impressive shock diamonds. On the left, we have an image of a fighter jet where the shock diamonds are clearly visible as bright diamond-shaped patterns in the exhaust. On the right, we see another aircraft with a similar pattern of shock diamonds. As mentioned, I find this phenomenon fascinating and can also be seen in high-speed exhaust systems, including rocket engines and more applications. The visibility of shock diamonds can be used to analyze the efficiency of the nozzle design and the engine performance at different speeds, as well as recognizing that the engine is working uniformly. In conclusion, afterburners increase thrust by injecting additional fuel into the exhaust stream of a jet engine, enabling combustion in the presence of excess oxygen, which increases both the temperature and velocity of the exhaust gases. However, this thrust augmentation comes at the cost of reduced fuel efficiency, as the extra fuel is not fully combusted and some escapes unburned. Afterburners are particularly useful for achieving rapid supersonic speeds and are commonly used in military aviation, but they are not suited for economical, sustained flight due to their high fuel consumption. On the other hand, shock diamonds are visible patterns in the exhaust of supersonic jets, formed by alternating shock waves and expansion fans that cause abrupt changes in density, pressure, and temperature.